For a really long time, it's always seemed like there's a JRPG problem on Xbox, and especially with Final Fantasy, because there's been a lot of games locked on PlayStation. Look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, look at Final Fantasy XVI. We not only got hope that might be showing signs of being over, but we just might have got it confirmed outright. And it's just along the path of a lot of wins that the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, the head of Microsoft Gaming, really, Phil Spencer, has been doing lately. And where is he taking the Xbox brand? This all stems off of basically the Final Fantasy Fan Fest has been going on. And when they were talking about Final Fantasy XIV, they brought Phil Spencer out on stage with the most dramatic of entrances, I just want to say.
Peter Spencer!
And what's really cool is, just a side note here, he lets out the words just, finally. That moment just really reminds me personally, and reminds a lot of us, how much Phil is a gamer. At the end of the day, he is a gamer. He cares about what he's doing and the people that he's serving. Is he trying to make money? Of course. But I'm just saying, it goes into why he's made so many of the choices that I'm going to be bringing up in this vid. And one of those things is working really well with Square Enix to bring Final Fantasy XIV finally to Xbox. That's great, you know, like, am I going to play that? Maybe not, but it's just a significant thing. And in fact, so much at first I didn't know if I was going to talk about it, but the big thing about this is not just 14 coming to Xbox, because otherwise I wouldn't be making this. It's the fact that the CEO, the words from his mouth from Square Enix, he's saying, like, this is the beginning of really trying to bring Final Fantasy and our games to Xbox whenever possible. Keywords, whenever possible. Might they be locked into some contracts that they made with PlayStation? Absolutely. But he used the words whenever possible. There was even this beautiful moment. You see the three of these guys come together and literally just hold hands on stage at this event for all the photographers to take pictures of live and just to make this statement. To me, that really made a statement that we're really serious about this. We want to try to bring Square Enix games to Xbox going forward. And that's such a cool thing, if true. Now, you know, who knows how many of these things will be, but it's just nice to make that public statement of an effort. And you see Phil celebrating that on stage, just letting out that finally. That single thought and this achievement just kind of led me down this rabbit trail of not just great. He's finally getting Square Enix to maybe ease off of taking PlayStation deals, and who knows, like, maybe he's just figured out what that has to be. Maybe it's because, and we knew this from the FTC hearing, maybe it's because they haven't entered bidding wars, you know, or to try to make these contracts with Square Enix. Maybe, but maybe he's finally like, you know what? Fine, let's just do that. If that's what it takes to get these games to our platform, let's just do that. And those are the kind of moves that Phil Spencer is really leaning into and has been leaning into these past years. We also learned from that FTC hearing that, you know, at one point, it just seemed like PlayStation was starting, and I'm not trying to point fingers at PlayStation. I'm just trying to say, you know, in terms of what Phil has been doing, it sounded like something that he had to deal with is losing Bethesda games to PlayStation between Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. And apparently it was soon going to be Starfield. And when they saw that happening, they're like, we're going to buy these guys, because if we own them, there's no chance of us losing these games anymore. And I'm not saying they have to do that for everything, but it sounds like Phil might be doing what I wanted them to do, which is just work it out, make that partnership. And that's a great sign with this handshake and everything, and this announcement from the Square CEO himself. Something else that happened this week, an entire, like, over 1,000 game catalog of super retro games has come to Xbox as an app. So the Antstream Arcade, 1,400 retro games. The head of Antstream Studio, he was on an interview and he mentioned, like, it's literally thanks to Phil Spencer that this happened. I got in contact with Phil and we had a meeting with him, and he loves game preservation. He talks about it a lot. And when you see him, you're one-on-one and you're talking about it, he's extremely passionate. And without the support of Phil and his team, it may never have come over. One of the most infamous moments of E3 history is when Phil Spencer was on stage and he announced
Xbox One backward compatibility.
That moment has gone down as one of the best announcements in gaming ever because it just showed this sign of game preservation. Rather than the folks previously going about TV, Phil just started to realize and came on to really shift Xbox in this direction of we are about games. As much as people want to say, start talking about games, man. Talk about the games. Everything that Xbox folks bring up with Xbox is about the games. It's just about how we access those games, what we have access to, how we can do it, and what we are playing. It's the whole spectrum. I don't want to sound bold here, but these acquisitions, 2018, that was another big moment where Phil Spencer announced all these studios that they're acquiring, all these studios that could use the money. And there's a lot of people that are also saying like buying these studios and taking them off the market and no longer being third party hurts them so bad. But then you look at an indie studio like Obsidian. When Obsidian was announced, they were an indie studio that got a neat game now and then, South Park, Stick of Truth, Fallout, New Vegas. But now they were producing like 4 games at once because they had the means to. And one of those 4 games was a game that nobody would ever play, like Pentiment. A game that is just not that sellable, has a super niche audience, but thanks to Game Pass, thanks to being first party, and thanks to having the funds to make the games they want, they still made that game. Along with like being in the progress of Outer Worlds 2, along with making Grounded complete, along with Avowed. Like they're working on so much, and it's mainly happened once they became first party. Saying a studio off the market is a bad thing. Let's talk about that third party thing. Bethesda Game Studios. I want to link you to a great interview. It's by Giant Bomb. And seriously, if you listen to this thing from start to finish, there's so much clarity that comes in it between how is Game Pass sustainable, what they do with their, in-house studios and so on. And a part of this interview, Phil dives into how when they acquired Bethesda, Starfield had a much earlier release date.
Truth be told, when the acquisition closed, this game had a significantly earlier ship date than where we're actually launching it, even significantly later than the date that we once had for the game. But it was earlier than that before. So sitting down with Todd and the team and explaining that we want to give this team the time. I think Matt says we have every QA person in our entire company
the state of Washington,
playing.
Yeah.
Like that was probably planned to be released in 2020. But when they acquired them, they were like, no, push that back, take the time you need, release it in 2021, 11/11, like you want or whatever. Maybe it was supposed to be 11/11, 2020. It's not that much of a surprise. We probably would be playing Elder Scrolls 6 at the end of this year if it wasn't for Xbox buying them because they wanted them to complete and work on this game. I really do sound like I am just being very fanboyish right now. And, that could be a thing. There, with the statement that Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios, was saying, like, if we released Starfield today, it would be the least buggiest game that Bethesda Game Studios has ever released. Now, is that true? Who knows? That could be PR. But it's believable because they let them push this game back so much, whereas back in the day, I'm sure Bethesda just wanted it to go out there. And that's why the Bethesda games were so buggy in the past. I'm not saying everything that Phil has done is perfect. Absolutely not. There was a great interview with Kinda Funny, and in that interview, he was very vulnerable. And that's another part about Phil that's great. He is very much just saying things as it is, and he can't say everything, obviously, but he admits, like they messed up with Redfall. We don't know this for sure. Maybe they sent it out to die, but he admits it. He admits that the fault is on us instead of just being around the bush about it. And when he could have not been on that show that day, they probably had a lot of positive things to talk about that day. In fact, Kinda Funny said that. Phil probably knew going on that show that day, this is going to be a barrage about the tragedy that is Redfall's release. And he still went on the show when previous folks totally would have canceled being on the show when the circumstance like that happened. And if they were on the show, then they just briefly say something and move on. But Phil just opened up on that show.
I also know that these games are $70, and I'm not gonna I'm gonna take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great.
And there's even a list from like Jay Wood 2010, great channel by the way. Shout out to him if you just want to be in the news and know every day. He put this list on Twitter. Phil Spencer has seriously been amazing for Xbox. He orchestrated a mass acquisition spree, including Bethesda and Activision, made backwards compatibility a priority, disrupted in the industry with Xbox Game Pass, broke open their ecosystem to include PC and Steam, and soon mobile. It just feels like everything that's happened up to this point has really been Phil's potential plan from the beginning when he first became CEO in 2014. And this Final Fantasy moment just got me thinking about that. I can't wait to see the comments of just folks saying, what a shill, what a fanboy. And I totally understand that. Like, hearing me out loud, that's really what it sounds like this whole video. I personally am really excited. You know, I feel very taken care of and hope that that feeling continues. Like, I wonder about a world that Xbox doesn't have Phil anymore and doesn't have Nadella backing him up. Would Nadella still back them up without Phil's vision and way? I don't know. Xbox has really changed how I view Xbox as somebody that's been playing it since the original console. This is the generation that I finally actually feel like I am a part of something. You know what I mean? And if you think the issue with Xbox is the quality of their games, you should check out the video on screen. Don't forget to be about awesome and subscribe if you want more gaming speculation.